Welcome, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council on Monday, March 16th, 2026. I'll request Deputy City Clerk to call the roll.
Councilmember Bushy.
Present.
Councilmember Hill is absent. Vice Mayor Kurtz.
Present.
Councilmember Yorns Galati.
Present.
Mayor Kate is absent.
I invite the City Attorney Rob Epstein to report out on closed session that was held prior to this meeting tonight.
Good evening. Thank you. No reportable action was taken in closed session.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and opening remarks and to welcome everybody. It feels like summer. It's March. Thank you to the staff and everyone right now. There's a lot of things happening in the city as usual, and really appreciate everyone's commitment to serving the community. Would like to ask the Deputy City Clerk to make a few comments regarding tonight's meeting.
Tonight's meeting is being recorded and streamed live to YouTube. For members of the public wishing to provide public comment, displayed on the podium and the projector is a timer to help you stay within your 2-minute time frame. You're invited, though not required, to introduce yourself and say what part of San Rafael you live in, or if you're from outside of San Rafael. Viewers may request a reasonable accommodation to provide public comment virtually. For more information about that, or if you experience any technical difficulties, you can email me at city.clerk@cityofsanrafael.org. Thank you.
Thank you. This time I'll open up for public expression for 10 minutes. I don't have any cards, but anyone's welcome to come down and speak. Welcome.
Mayor, council members, good evening. I'm Stephen Bryant. I am not here to relitigate 700 Irwin, but I fully expect we'll collaborate on future projects, and I offer this debrief and process improvement feedback in that spirit. First, traceability. This means documenting the conclusions and what it relies on. This is not just good governance, it's California administrative law. Topanga versus County of Los Angeles requires that the record bridge the analytic gap between evidence and conclusions, regardless of denial or approval. The record must show its work. Second, predicates matter. Traceability would have surfaced a foundational problem. 100 units was used as the baseline without evidentiary support, and it directly conflicts with what the city itself stated in your HCD certified housing element, that 50 units is what objective standards support for 700 Irwin. When the public is asked to swallow a difficult pill, there's a difference between double an unsupported number and 4 times the documented certified objective standard number. That difference should have been explained in the record. Third, remand to correct is not the same as remand to deny. The council was presented with 2 options: approve the appeal and deny the project, or deny the appeal and approve it. Given those options, the council made a risk avoidant decision, but that is not what we asked for. We sought remand to correct the record, then approve the project, a path that would have resolved the predicate issues without ever triggering the risk of denial. That option was never presented. Time is limited, so supporting details and process recommendations to address these observations are in my written comments. Thank you.
Thank you, and we did receive your letter. Any other public comment this time?
Hello, my name is Wayne Rayburn. I live in San Rafael Meadows. As everyone probably knows, we had a homeless lady stabbed to death on Saturday. And due to that, in memory of her family and her friends, I'd like to hold a few minutes of silence, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're taking public comment on items not on the agenda. Any others? All right, moving on. Thank you. We are now on to the consent calendar. Are there any items to be held from the consent calendar? Oh, I'm sorry. I did that last time too. So sorry. All right, moving on, or moving back. For city manager and council member reports. Acting City Manager
Thank
Navas?
you, Madam Vice Mayor, members of the council. I think the only item I wanted to share in the city manager comments is there was a prescribed pile burning schedule for San Rafael Hill, which has been moved to occur between March 18th and April 3rd, weather permitting. And a reminder that residents can sign up for Alert Marin's prescribed burning notifications in order to be updated on all of the activity related to wildfire prevention.
Right, appreciate it.
that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Councilmember Bushy.
I attended the board meeting of the Central Marin Sanitation Agency last week. It was a routine matter. We opened a bid and it came in 20% below our engineer's estimate. So we're very happy with that. That
Great.
concludes my report.
Great, thank you. Councilmember Lawrence Gladdy.
Yes, thank you. I attended with Vice Mayor Kurtz the San Rafael City County, San Rafael City Schools and Miller Creek School District quarterly meeting. So it was my first one since I've been a council member coming from the school board. It was really great to see some of the participants, and yeah, it was a great meeting. My biggest report will be around the Civic Well conference that I attended last week. This is a conference that convenes local government leaders, all the elected officials and policy experts from across California to discuss strategies for sustainable and resilient communities. Some of the topics that we were discussing were around transportation equity, around creative funding strategies for local projects, workforce and economic development. In that particular one, I was making some great connections around micro kitchens and also training and workforce for daycare and also center for laborers. So I thought that I look forward to our continuing conversations with other elected officials. We also discussed neighborhood scale clean energy solutions. One of the panelists was the CEO of Marine Clean Energy. Sorry, MCE Clean Energy. And last but not least, there was the connection between housing policy and climate resilience. I had the pleasure to sit down with the director of the California Department of Housing and Community Development, and we are having some great conversations and hopefully follow up in one of the projects that is coming to our city. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And I have no other items to report. We are now are there any questions on city council member reports or comments? All right, moving on to consent calendar. Are there any items to be held from the consent calendar?
Yeah, Madam Vice Mayor, I would like to request that item 2E, the Integrated Pest Management Policy Update, be removed actually from the agenda this evening, and we will bring that back as early as potentially the next meeting, but pending some additional community outreach.
Right, thank you. Any other items to be removed from the consent calendar? No, all right. Any comments from the public on the consent calendar?
Thank you and good evening. My name is Gregory Andrew, and I have a brief comment about item 2B, the records retention item. As someone who has made Public Records Act requests to the city and likely to make additional requests in the future, oh joys, I'm glad to see and support the city wanting to provide clarity and consistency in its records retention practices that would apply to all departments and individuals subject to city records retention obligations. I am also glad to see that there is a plan for the city clerk and attorney's office to coordinate with departments and provide future updates. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Council members and Vice Mayor, nice to meet you all. Thank you for being here and providing this opportunity. My name is Kramer Winslow. I live just very close to here up on Laurel Place, so I walk around here a lot. It's lovely. I want to go back in time for a moment to the early aughts, the early 2000s. And there were a few of us who were in a class, and we were learning about this methodology called IPM, or Integrated Pest Management. And we want to thank you also for pulling this from the calendar, because we have some thoughts on it. And those were the days of the council members were Paul Cohen, Damon Connolly was sitting in this room a lot, Barbara Heller, Sear Miller. And Mayor Alboro had come into office wanting to create a renaissance in San Rafael. The plaza downtown was being built, trees were growing, lights going across the street, and so forth. And as we were learning about that, about IPM, we also heard that the county had a very rigorous plan and that they were implementing for taking as many pesticides, generic term using, out of the system for the county parks. And we thought, why not San Rafael? This could be part of our renaissance. And then we found out that indeed it would be a good idea to do that. We talked to all of the folks and they agreed, and we had it unanimously accepted as as an ordinance so that we could change the law in San Rafael. We're thrilled about that. We also know it takes constant upkeep and so forth. And the team has been doing a great job, and we are here because we would like to also have some words in that. So thank you very much for what you've done already. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
You might want to
Oh, wrong podium. Good evening. My name is Rika Gopinath. I'm a resident of San Rafael. And first of all, thank you, Councilmember Kurtz, for pulling this item. We would request, let me just explain to you, I'm a resident, but I also serve on the Marin County IPM Commission and have done for over 13 years. And my day job is working with a national nonprofit on pesticide issues and working with hundreds, seems like hundreds of municipalities on IPM policies. So we think that this is a fantastic opportunity to revisit the policy, and maybe would request more than just a week to be able to interact with both city council staff and administration on this topic, since the last revision was back in 2017. My main point in coming today is to just kind of give some context. Obviously, you know, the city has worked hard. I've met with Aaron Tubbs and have a lot of respect for him. And I think that the revision, which is not very substantive as presented in the consent calendar, is really an opportunity, because not only have IPM policies evolved, especially with Marin County parks, but so has the idea and practice of sustainable municipal land management. And there's lots of things that I think could inform the policy to both be better, as well as opportunities for practice to also save the city money. But there's just a lot of information that I think this revision offers the opportunity for. We are very grateful that the city has a policy, and that the staff is willing to open it. But I think it would benefit from several weeks, and not necessarily a study session or anything that intense and formal, but just an opportunity to bring resources together and offer information and conversation.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Debbie Rafael, a 30-year resident of San Rafael, and I was a past IPM coordinator and director of the San Francisco Department of Environment, and one of the authors way back 20 years ago of this policy. And when I saw that it was in the consent calendar, it was a little bit alarming, because there would be no way for us as the community to weigh in on a consent. So thank you very much for pulling it. I also hope that there's a little bit more time to involve us in the discussion. The amendments were not giant, but it is a missed opportunity. It's a missed opportunity after 20 years of implementation to take a look at what's possible, to learn from others, and to ask some questions about how we're doing on transparency and tracking, and frankly, with limited resources, what do we need to do to strengthen the hand of the staff that are working so hard and to build the confidence of the city? So we're just here to say thank you. Give us some time. We're all committed to working with staff to make this a great policy. So thank you.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you. Any other comments, public comments on the items on the consent calendar? Seeing none, bring it back. There's a motion.
I move that we adopt the consent calendar items 2A through 2D.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy?
Aye.
Councilmember Yorn Scalati?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz?
Aye. That passes. And I'll ask no, I think we're good. That's it on that one. All right, thank you. All right, we are now moving into public hearings. And we have established a electronic and paperless filing for FPPC campaign disclosure statements. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll give a brief overview of this item, and then we can take the public hearing. Essentially, this item is prepared to seek council's approval for the introduction of what's an ordinance that would be required in order for the city to transition from kind of a manual intensive paper document process for FPPC, Fair Political Practices Commission campaign disclosure statements to a compliant online electronic filing system. As the council is aware, among the many requirements of the FPPC as it relates to campaign is a requirement for periodic and regular filings from the campaign committees. Those are processed by the city clerk's office. Not only has it been a manual process, but part of it also entails having to review it in a little bit more detail than maybe is necessary to redact information, because then it becomes presented as public information. And what the city clerk's office has been working on is transitioning to, I believe, the NetFile platform that is used not only is it compliant with all the state requirements, it's also used by the county and the majority of the jurisdictions here in Marin County, which would require the submissions to go through the electronic web-based platform. Government code authorizes such use. However, it does require an ordinance by the city council to allow the city to move forward with that implementation. We think it's going to not only improve some of the efficiency and the work involved in this area, but also actually improve the transparency and the visibility to the public for the activity under the purview of the section of the FPPC requirements. So with that, any questions, we can proceed public hearing.
Great. Thank you. Are there any questions from the council?
I have one question. I have a question about the signatures on documents. Will this system allow for electronic signatures, or will there still need to be ink signatures on documents? Or does it not have anything to do with that?
Do you know yeah.
You will be able to upload it to NetFile as you can at home or in your office. You don't have to, you're no longer required to do the wet signature, drop it off in our office or send it to us.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
Welcome.
No questions. No questions from me. Open it for public comment. No public comment. We'll close public comment. No questions to respond to. Any other comments from the council members?
Just that this appears to be an efficient and consistent process that will make things available more quickly to those who might be interested in a campaign's finance, and have it all in one place and make it easier on our staff.
Any other comments?
No comments.
Okay. I agree, as one who tends to be running before the doors lock. I'm very happy to have this online. So request a motion in a second.
I'll make a motion to introduce the ordinance, waive a further reading, and refer to it by title only.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Yorns Glady.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz.
Aye. This passes, and I'll request the Deputy City Clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of San Rafael, adding Chapter 2.09 to Title 2, Administration of the San Rafael Municipal Code to require electronic and paperless filing of Fair Political Practices Commission, FPPC, campaign disclosure statements.
Thank you. All right, we have a second public hearing, General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Report. Come on down.
So our Community Economic Development Director, Micah Hinkle, and Deputy Director Greg Miner will be presenting this item. You guys need a minute?
Thank you.
Not too much of a minute, but good evening, Vice Mayor Kurtz and council members. Micah Hinkle, Community Economic Development Director. Very pleased to bring forward the annual General Plan Progress Report. As you are aware, this is required to be filed with HCD with our annual housing status updates. And I have Greg Miner presenting his first 2025 annual progress report on this. This is like a rite of passage for planners to actually have to go through and do this report. So particularly the charts you can't read, like those are the big things that we're most focused on this. So with that, I'll turn it over to Greg and we'll go through this stuff.
Thank you, Micah. Greg Miner with Community Economic Development Department. Hopefully it's my last 2025 update as well as the first, but this is first time providing the update. As Micah mentioned, this is a state legal requirement to provide this report and to submit it in a specific format that the tables that were attached to the staff report. But it's also just a point in time to assess where the city is in terms of implementing the general plan and specifically the housing element, both in terms of development activity as well as the implementation of various programs in the housing element. So this PowerPoint presentation is going to start off by focusing on 2025 housing activities, then zoom back a little bit to assess where we are, what the 2025 statistics show in terms of trends over time, and then focus on housing programs, followed by updates on other elements of the general plan. So before jumping into the statistics, just wanted to make sure we're all using the same terminology. So this slide lays out the different affordability categories as defined by state law. A lot of the housing statistics that are asked by the Housing Community Development Department ask for information based on income levels, because cities have a responsibility to plan for housing across all income levels. The top two categories, acutely and extremely low income, as far as I understand, there are new categories this year. Historically, they were folded under the very low income categories. So if you're cross-referencing this report from prior years, you're like, why is there this category this year and not prior years? That's the reason why. The different income levels are all a reflection of a relationship with the average median income for the county. You can see here the different percentage breakdown. The next slide will give you actual numbers to get a sense of what that means. So Marin County, being a more affluent jurisdiction, the median income of a four-person household is $186,600. This is as much math as I'm going to present, as I feel comfortable presenting. So that means half of our county four-person households make more than that, and half make less. And then you have the different income breakdowns above and below. The top, I just highlight the top categories presumed to be served by the market rate developments. Okay, so now the next two slides are going to show our statistics for 2025. So at the bottom here, one of the main storylines is the entitlement activity. 576 units were entitled, meaning they were approved by our planning division to take place, whereas 33 housing units were issued building permits, meaning they were authorized to commence construction, and 179 housing units commenced the construction process and those units are authorized for actual occupancy. I highlighted a couple numbers here just to kind of the story within the story for each of these columns here. So the main story for the entitlement is the large number of 5+ units per structure, which is mostly a reflection of all the development activity in the downtown as a result of the downtown precise plan. And we're gonna, not to foreshadow too much, but I'm gonna dive a little bit more into the entitlement in a couple slides. But when it comes to actual building permits issued, virtually all of the building permits for housing that were issued were for accessory dwelling units. 28 of the 33 building permits were for ADUs. And then when it comes to the completed units, the 144 that are highlighted here for the 5+ units out of 179, the majority of that stems from the Aegis living facility that completed construction and opened this year. The next slide is a breakdown of those 33 building permits that were issued by affordability category. You'll note they're very evenly divided, and that's not a coincidence. And it's also, they're all generally falling under non-deed restricted, because the ADU units are not deed restricted affordable units, but rather affordable by design and presumed to be affordable. And the precise breakdown, or rather than being a precise breakdown of a specific ADU at a specific address is known to be a certain income level. There's a presumption based on a study done by ABAG that ADU units break down across these four different income levels evenly. Okay, so stepping back a second. So this chart here, this is sort of the transition to the so what. What does this mean? 576 represents entitled units in 2025 represents quite a jump from historic entitlement activity from 2018 to 2023. But you'll notice a dip from 2024 when we had the redevelopment of Northgate Mall. But in truth, this is actually an underrepresentation of the entitlement activity that took place in 2025, because 3 projects that were technically approved in January, 4040 Civic Center, 700 Irwin and 1030 3rd Street, the latter were all approved in January technically by the city, but the latter 2 were actually approved by our planning commission in 2025, and they were just appealed to the city council and heard in January. So the next slide incorporates that and is kind of a more true reflection of all the entitlement activity that's taken place in the last 2 years. Between 2018 and 2023, the city of San Rafael entitled around 180 units per year. But after 2023, we've averaged over 1,400 units a year, including the month of January 2026. So this is one of the large kind of takeaways I would offer from the data, is we've seen a huge spike in entitlement activity, most likely a combination of the redevelopment of Northgate Mall and all the different changes in state laws that limit local discretion in order to encourage the production of housing. The next story is that this entitlement activity hasn't carried over into the actual construction just yet. This chart here lays out building permits that were issued by year over the last 10 years and broken down by affordability level. The 33 units that I was talking about a moment ago are shown on the far right for 2025, and you can see they're kind of evenly striped based on affordability because of that ADU formula. And you can see that it's kind of 33 is more or less consistent with kind of how things went in San Rafael, except for certain years where certain developments were permitted, such as 2015, 2020, 2022, 2023. What will be interesting a year from now is to see how much of the entitlement activity carries forward into the construction. We've already issued demolition permits for 930 Irwin, I believe 703 3rd Street, first phase of Northgate, and then I think 1515 4th Street are all projects that are potentially likely to move forward into the construction phase. And if even a fraction of those take place, it would those figures will be literally off the chart on this particular chart, which has the top here is only 160 units. So I would offer those are kind of two of the main takeaways from the data. So it's not surprising when you look at our building permit activity, where we are in terms of overall in the RHNA or Regional Housing Needs Allocation progress for the 2023 to 2031 8-year timeframe. Unfortunately, overall, we've only issued 6.5% of the building permits compared to the overall targets. There are some distinctions between different income categories, but the bottom line is only 6.5% at this point, which, for better or for worse, is virtually identical to our neighbor Novato, who's reported, I think it's like 6.4% in terms of how many building permits they've issued compared to their targets as well. But beyond like new construction activity, a lot of different housing programs, specifically in the preservation front, move forward in 2025. So this slide here lays out some of the highlights of the program implementation, which is pretty much a direct reflection of our amazing housing program manager, Alexis Kaptanian. For example, she completed tenant workshops with tenants, all conducted in Spanish, and served on the Rudin Marin Steering Committee, which produced the Rudin Marin report on tenant protections and also contains a host of really valuable data on housing in Marin County. The City Council, in I think it was June of last year, awarded $600,000 from the city's Affordable Housing Trust Fund for the pre-development for 5194 4th Street, preservation of apartment complex in the canal, as well as towards Marin foster care. That was, I think, one of the more memorable council meetings of last year. We also, there was a presentation on tenant protections to the City Council Subcommittee, and then 94 units at 400 Canal Street were preserved as affordable through the Bay Area Housing Finance Authority's Welfare Tax Exemption Preservation Program. So it's an example of kind of a really significant impact to preserve these units as affordable in the future that aren't reflected in some of the building permit and entitlement statistics that we looked at a moment ago. And the last two items highlighted here are the 103 units for older adults that were completed at the Aegis Living San Rafael that I mentioned earlier. And finally, the city's acquisition of 350 Marydale Road, 2.5-acre property that will serve both as an interim shelter for unhoused individuals and permanent affordable housing. So a lot of work took place in 2025 here. But beyond just housing, the city was very busy across a variety of elements in the general plan. The next two slides highlight just a few of those across different general plan elements. The first two are related to land use and development. The first being that the city accepted grant funding to prepare the Northgate and Southeast San Rafael specific plans. The Southeast San Rafael specific plan has a kickoff just this week, is moving forward. So I would anticipate more updates a year from now in terms of its progress. And the Northgate specific plan staff recently released an RFP to identify a developer to move that, or I'm sorry, an environmental consultant to move that process forward. And then I think we saw in terms of the huge spikes in the graphs, the downtown precise plan is being implemented. And then there's activity around 620 Canal Street, both for the acquisition for future park, as well as the receipt of funding for Public Works to conduct a feasibility study of a potential bicycle pedestrian bridge, which potentially could connect the canal neighborhood and neighborhoods north of San Rafael Creek. In terms of mobility, we, as a city council, adopted an ordinance to reduce speed limits in compliance with new state laws, and our economic program manager, Stacy Lauman, carried forward the launch of a public art program that we're going to see more so in the coming weeks and months. And then we have a couple other updates here, mostly some of which are a reflection of the work of our library and recreation colleagues, the improvements at Pickleweed Park, the implementation of emergency shelter in response to a fire that took place in the Canal neighborhood, our code enforcement unit in carrying out the housing inspection program inspected over 114 buildings, which represents more than 940 individual housing units. And that was one of the program elements in our equity, diversity, and inclusion element. And lastly, the city has adopted an ordinance to establish a mobile vending program last fall. So a lot of this, I'm sure the council is very aware because you are the city council, but for the general public's knowledge, it's just a reflection of all the activity that took place in 2025. So with that, happy to take any questions.
I just want to thank you, and I will open it up to questions. Can you just can you remind the public what the little codes are next to the completed items and what that references?
Yes. And it's also referenced in the staff report. And my apologies for not spelling it out. The abbreviations stand for the different elements of the general plan. So LU, for example, stands for land use, NH stands for neighborhoods, PR for park, recreation, and open space, M for mobility, AC for arts and culture, for example. And I can pull up the page section of the staff report, but I believe all the elements are referenced towards the end of the staff report.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll go ahead and open it up for comments.
Let me see if I can read my own writing now. So in terms of like our RENA numbers, I'm sorry, I don't know if you mentioned this or not, or if it's in the report. When we are doing like the units that we just built, the 103 units for the IE's new place, does that qualify towards RENA numbers, or does it have to be regular housing?
They just fall under a different section of the staff it's a different table within our reporting to the state. So the Aegis Living falls under completed units, and I can go back.
But is that part of our RENA numbers that we are required to build?
I believe that what I think most people refer to as RENA, and Director Hinkle can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, refer to building permits issued. But the chart here that is on the screen is part of what is asked of the city to report, which is both a reflection of entitled activity, building permits issued, and completed units.
Right.
So this is a question we get an awful lot about assisted care facilities. You know, there's a combination of both commercial and residential, but then we have actually had some like further follow up on trying to recognize those actually as units. So, but I'll have a housing manager actually present that.
Hi, good evening. Alexis Kaptanian, housing manager. Yes, this has been sort of an ongoing conversation with HCD. We have counted the different types of, there's a couple of different types of units in Aegis, right? There's assisted living, independent living, memory care. We have noted all of those in our report as people live there full time. So they include a definition, and we believe that all of those units fall under that definition, no matter the type of senior housing that's being provided.
Okay, that's great news. And as I mentioned, I just met the director of housing and community development for the state of California, and it was very interesting because in his presentation, he had a chart. 2024, maybe there was like just a little bit over 100,000 permits, and there was like over 250,000 permits, and only over 100,000 were actually built. So this is something that is happening in all the state of California, and that was very interesting to see. I'm so pleased with the 400 Canal Street. That was like a few years of battling when we had a new developer coming to the canal, buying a building, and really trying to get all the tenants out of there. And the work from our team from the city was incredible. Also, the advocacy from the tenants being able to do this. Also, working with the county. how feasible it is to do a similar project in other buildings, because we are seeing with the opportunity zone in the canal that sometimes there are like new developers coming and not necessarily updating to keep the current tenants, but raising prices. So
Thank you for the question. One of the things that staff worked hard to evaluate in this circumstance was the trade-off and making sure that there was sufficient public benefit, because the program does include a tax exemption, right? And so I would say we will be continuing, as perhaps more interests emerge from properties, to use that tool. We'll continue in consultation with the city council and receiving council direction to look at when that trade-off makes sense and there's sufficient public benefit. And what I mean is looking at, what's the level of affordability, who are the tenants that are currently housed there, and it is a little bit case by case depending on the profile of the building.
okay, yeah, thank you so much. And in terms of preservation for current units, those, sorry, I'm just clarifying again, those wouldn't count towards RENA numbers, right? If we preserve, remodel and preserve.
They are not counted towards RENA. However, we have had an update on the current form. You'll see it in the spreadsheet that there's a new table noting preserved units. So perhaps a step in the right direction. We did include 400 Canal as well as a couple of other properties that were preserved recently.
Great. Well, I don't have any other questions. Thank you so much for the report and the work.
Thank you. Councilmember Bushy.
I want to put things in context here because I'm getting the sense, and correct me if I'm wrong, from your report that in some ways we're standing on a precipice of great change in our community. As I'm looking at the table that you have up there, under the completed category, it's Aegis, which I think that went through the Planning Commission over a decade ago. And so there have been essentially no units completed, that were new. But now, as we stand here looking out into 2026, we look at the entitled list, and I guess more so the building permits, the permitted. So is it fair to walk away from your presentation with the sense that in the next 12 months, things are really going to we're going to be off the charts if this unfolds the way we think it will?
I'll take a stab at it, and then Director Hinkle can feel free to jump in. I mean, it's difficult to predict the future. That's why I want to qualify everything. But the fact that we have issued demolition permits for certain activities is a good signal that people are invested in those projects, and they would be likely to advance forward with construction in 2026. And when you say off the charts, I think, as I mentioned before, it would be, if those projects move forward, we would be off this chart, which is not necessarily the rate that we need to continue in order to meet our RENA targets. So we might be seeing more construction activity than we have historically in San Rafael. But in terms of satisfying the overall housing deficit in the Bay Area, in Marin County, the Bay Area, and California, we still have a ways to go. But I would defer to Director Hinkle if anything you want.
Sure. I mean, putting that in context about RENA overall, I'm not aware of any cities that are actually on that track. There's a handful that might be, making progress. I'd actually put San Rafael on that same list as making progress towards pretty lofty goals and targeted ends from ABAG MTC. So, and really, I do think it is. I mean, the change, the agent of change, really has been some of the new state housing laws have supported that, and this council has been very well accepting and understanding those and moving it forward. Those really are housing driven right now. Our downtown precise plan was really that document of change for this community. What I will say though is really just the level, I mean, we had the same conversation a year ago, right? When I had to present the prior years of like, how come we entitled but we didn't build? And we're kind of on that face now of we actually do have projects that have been actually submitted and construction level documents, all the engineering and the technical work done on that paid for and actually in process now. We're about ready to issue those. Some are set to be issued, some are right around the corner to be issued, finalizing some final pieces, but they're significant projects, 5 to 7 stories, some of these. And one of those projects, 703 Third, actually started, to your point earlier, started at our prior general plan cycle. That's how long it's taken to kind of get to this phase. A lot of alignment needs to kind of come into play. A willing developer, financial markets, lending cost. And these things are starting to line up for our community. And that's why I do think as much as we have entitled in the pipeline, delivering a handful of these projects are actually going to put us in a great position. I actually think will put us in a better position to actually gain more attention from the development community. So for us to revisit our development processes, our fees, all the things we're working towards are prudent for us to do. And to kind of set ourselves up for success for not just this cycle, but the following cycles for San Rafael, and also delivering the things that this community is looking for. I've mentioned this before, and we've had similar conversations. And one area I also think we need to really look deeper into is infrastructure. Both water, power, sewer, along with roadways. I mean, these are things that we're going to have to address as we're starting to change our positions as a growth community. Entitlement's one thing, but actually getting it constructed is another. So I did actually have an opportunity to review some of the letters that came in on this comments and do appreciate their valid points. We are far from meeting those RENA numbers, but there is opportunities to look at our process improvements. And that's something that this council has started to actually push and support us as staff to do. And I welcome that about potentially looking at ministerial approaches and other ways to actually try to streamline the review process. And I think that's something we're going to return to this council in another work session in the near future. So I do think those things are setting themselves up along with really the expectation of change. And really what's been charged of staff and myself to say, bring forth development, bring forth housing. And that's one of the target ends we've been trying to meet. I do have to hats off to staff. We kind of look at the laundry list of items, both this general plan, the housing components across the board for this community. Staff has really met the moment. Now, what we've recognized, there's bigger moments to come as we start to try to implement these items. So that's really the exciting part of it. And I'm excited to be here to be part of that, to kind of help this community define the next chapter.
And the next chapter's coming. That's the message. We've been wrestling with our RENA obligations. I have had a front seat on that for decades. So yes, that's an ongoing challenge. But what this plan update is telling us is that the future in San Rafael looks bright, but it looks different. Change in the real world on our streets is coming. So be prepared. And when we get to comments, I'll have some more comments about the general plan part. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the update. I do have some questions. I know this wasn't specifically around the RENA numbers and the update's really about the general plan. Do you have any information at this point from the state of what the state might be looking at in terms of jurisdictions not meeting their RENA numbers?
I don't have updates, but what I would reiterate is what we've seen is that there is a housing accountability unit at the state, and they are keeping an eye out, particularly for jurisdictions that are, let's say, obstructing housing development, and so they're monitoring everyone's RENA progress, and I think particularly keeping an eye out for folks who are making an effort not to build in their community.
And I believe there's still some jurisdictions in Marin that have not have a authorized or valid housing element. Is that correct?
I believe there's at least one.
Yeah. All right. While you have the bike, any update on our affordable housing NOFA?
Yes, thank you for the question. So we did distribute, the council awarded 600,000 last year, as Greg mentioned. And we had a first time collaboration on a joint NOFA with the county and got really positive feedback from both from applicants, from the county, from city staff. This year, we are in a position we haven't been in several years, which is that we have awarded our funds and we don't currently have funds to award. So that is why we didn't participate in the joint NOFA with the county this year. We hope to perhaps participate in the following year. However, I did want to note, it wasn't because the joint process didn't work well. It did.
It did. Okay. All right.
Well, the other part of that too is a lot of the developers have chosen to build their units as compared to paying an in lieu fee. That usually our housing trust fund is based on in lieu payments, but they've opted to build that also for state density bonus law provisions for their projects. So as I said, that we're kind of seeing some of the policy level issues from the state kind of play out on the local level. So
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Another question in terms of, so entitlement is in our hands, city council hands. Building permit, the story's been, it's in the developer's hands. And what I think I just heard you talk about was that there are things that we can do to actually encourage, to partner with the developers to encourage those building permits. Can you expand a little bit more on what we can do in that space?
sure, it's really the opportunity to kind of revisit our process and procedures related to building. The one thing I will say for our community right now, large scale development. We really haven't seen large scale development of this nature ever. So it really has been working with developers who build these type of products throughout the state and reviewing them, like really finding efficiencies within those reviews. One thing that we do in San Rafael is we actually do have a nice bench depth, and we brought these contracts to council numerous times throughout the year about the consulting services supporting these developer inquiries for both building planning, environmental review. But the building support actually allows us to move quickly and efficiently through those processes. One, because we have different staff levels and they can have the expertise to look at these very complicated plan sets in depth and with a certain expectation of timing and return and return. So that's actually been something we've been working with our consultants to help and support. We also established, like Northgate Mall is a really good example of this. We actually established a new process where we ended up outsourcing both project management and the plan check and inspections for that project. This is a project that's so large that it'll actually wipe out our internal capacity by itself. So what we ended up doing is establishing a bench depth to allow that project to ebb and flow, and all on developer deposit. So basically, it's a cost recovery approach to allow that project to move as quickly and efficiently as possible. It still has city oversight through our various departments, but the project management and then kind of working with the developer on the various processes has created an efficiency ability. But that's why establishment has really been hats off to our finance department along with our public works department and our legal team to kind of help create the structure to allow that to occur, where we take a deposit and then allow to actually hire the outside consultants to complete the work in an efficiency way. So, and it's just the nature of kind of like how we're going to have to look at this, because I don't anticipate there's like ebbs and flows of this. So like hiring or staffing up significantly, then really just finding ways to actually meet the need. So, but that's actually an example of kind of how we've looked at process improvements to kind of meet that approach.
Okay, great. Another question. You had mentioned the infrastructure piece. With all the development that's happening in North San Rafael, what is our conversations or agreements right now with Las Colinas Valley Water District?
So for the sanitation district, so Las Colinas Valley Sanitation District, it's an ongoing support with them, recognizing kind of the various growth that's really is unprecedentedly for that sanitation district, but really supporting them on their analysis of really the pipe and capacity, their pipes infrastructure along with their pump stations. I know they actually have completed recent bonds for their treatment plant upgrades, along with the new kind of an office complex facility that's was approved by the city through their applications last year. But it is an ongoing kind of collaboration with them. We are not service providers or provide sanitation service both for Central Santa Fe and North Santa Fe, but we rely on our utility partners. So, but it's really trying to look at those opportunities. One thing I do think that's been started, and this is really with Central Santa Fe Sanitation District, is really recognizing the pipeline. And they're doing a capacity analysis study to recognize that pipeline, but also what is the fair share developer impact for pipe upgrades and sanitation service improvements.
So Central Marin's doing, so Central Marin's doing that, but not North?
Not at this phase. I think North Santa Fe also is working through various. I think Northgate was really kind of the trigger point for them to understand really their service capacities. You know, we did a full environmental impact review for that project, and they did identify some major pipeline upgrades related to that project. But it also serves other projects that are like further downstream. So it's just recognizing there's some improvements that are being necessary in order to make some of these developments reality.
If I might interrupt just
Please.
for a little bit of clarification, the sewer collection agency in San Rafael is the San Rafael Sanitation District. That is the collection agency who is doing the study for the upgrades. The Central Marin Sanitation Agency is the wastewater treatment plant that exists in San Rafael. Different or organizations with different boundaries.
And Las Colinas Valley.
Las Colinas Valley is a collection and treatment facility. So
lots of players.
Yes.
Well, that's why you need, Councilmember Bushy to sit on these various agencies to understand these things, the nuances between them. But what it is a recognition of really the infrastructure systems we have now, and then like the changes coming forward, and then really what's going to be necessary is really for the community services improvements. But there are both ratepayer components to it, but then also for new development, their fair share. So.
Absolutely. And I think I'm going to go back to the last question I had last year around this. With our ADUs, they're getting counted as lower, those last 3 tiers. Do we do any validation to confirm that that's really the case, that they're actually being rented out?
Not currently. However, there is a potential opportunity to participate in ABAG's ADU affordability survey and study. So that is something that we could consider in future, and would involve a little bit of administration on our part, but would provide us with some more specific data.
Anecdotally?
I will just say that ADUs, because of their size, are often affordable by design. And so I don't have information offhand about whether we track with that exact split from ABAG.
I apologize to put you on the spot with
That's
that.
okay.
I will make that comment. Appreciate that. Please.
So I have a follow-up question because I believe that now if you have like an Airbnb, you need to have like to be registered for the city. I'm just curious to see if there is some crossover between those Airbnb registrations versus ADUs, or if people are actually not registering, ADUs for like short-term rentals versus long-term. And maybe it's more a comment than a question. I don't know.
I appreciate that, and maybe that's something we can come back to the council with as taking a look at that with our code enforcement team.
I think my understanding of it's really the duration of time, 30 days or less. It's like a different regulation or regulatory versus 30 or more. So, but we can actually look at that and provide back that at a later time.
Okay. All right. We had a lot of questions. Thank you for the updates and everything. We'll open it up now for public comment. If anyone would like to speak on this item, you're welcome to approach. You have 2 minutes. You're welcome to say your name and where you live, but you don't need to.
My name is Susan.
I think that you all have a difficult job in regard to the housing mandate. And I wanted to also mention that in terms of the community, when you build high rises, especially high rises that don't have community, like a garden or anything, if they're built to full, almost taking up the whole site, um, you just don't have a community anymore, in my opinion. And it does change what would necessarily be a community. That said, we're getting back to the general plan and housing. Uh, I would like more examination in regard to the liquefaction, to safety, because there are some sites that are very concerning to me and to other people that I talk to. And it's not just one element that's of concern in regard to liquefaction. And when you're building high rises, we have some history about liquefaction, high liquefaction, by the way, according to the USGS. And we also have State Highway 101, and we have gas stations. And sometimes some of these sites are within a few feet of each other, together, all at once. And I think that it's unsafe and dangerous, at least when I look at it. We can look at Seaside, Florida in 2021 when there was water from a swimming pool that started to regularly infuse into a sandy soil condition. And maybe you recall that this large condo complex collapsed and people died. So I think that this needs to be taken seriously. Do we want people to die?
Thank you. Thank you.
Or drivers on
Thank you for your
101?
comment.
Good evening. I'm Jenny Silva with Call Marin Home, formerly the Marin Environmental Housing Collaborative, and we advocate for more affordable housing in Marin. We are a coalition of organizations. And San Rafael's permitted 33 units. There are still 3,000 units that need to be permitted over the last 5 years. And as your staff discussed, entitlements are up, but we need to get them built. I am really encouraged to hear staff talk about what they could do to work on the permits, and I'd really love to see more energy from the city and from the council to make sure that these units that have been approved do get built. And I'll just say I attend these meetings and I'm on Nextdoor, and I know there is a very vocal minority of residents that are pushing to stop the very limited progress that has happened to date. The downtown precise plan is visionary, and it provides the vision that San Rafael needs. History shows us that anything that is visionary receives a huge amount of feedback, even the Eiffel Tower, even the Golden Gate Bridge. And so I just want to support all the work that the city has done and the council has done to take this vision this far and to continue it. I also want to remind folks that the people here are not representative of the electorate of San Rafael. We have 43,000 low-income families and only 15,000 affordable units. We have the highest rate of displacement in the Bay Area. When we tabled at the senior fair, I spoke to 3 different older residents who realized that they were going to become homeless, and they had no idea. They thought that homelessness was something that happened to the mentally ill or to people with addiction issues, not to people who just didn't have enough income. And they were pretty shocked and felt really betrayed by the community. So those folks don't usually have the bandwidth to show up here and speak. And so I ask you to keep them in your mind as you make these decisions and to push to get these buildings built. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Vice Mayor, council members, staff, good evening again. I'm Stephen Bryant. First, thank you to staff for the detailed presentation. The affordability breakdown table was extremely helpful. I just want to note for the record that the table showed 0 deed restricted units for any lower income categories in 2025. I recognize this reflects a genuine, difficult balancing act. meeting our RENA obligations under the Housing Accountability Act while ensuring affordability that actually lasts. Those two things don't always move together. And I've raised 700 Irwin before, and it's a good example. There were no deed restricted 3-bedroom units produced, and without deed restrictions, affordability doesn't stick. I'd also ask that we look ahead and that staff explore incentives, perhaps, or other options that the city might offer to developers to voluntarily include deed restricted units, even when we're limited in what we can require. I just ask staff continue to flag that distinction as you've done tonight, clearly in future reporting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening and thank you. My name is Gregory Andrew. I live in San Rafael Meadows, and I thought I was going to only have one question on this, but I actually, since 350 Marydale was mentioned in the staff report, I'm going to have two. My first question is, can you please explain what the city is actually required to do with regards to these RENA numbers? I've heard the word obligations, I've heard the word targets, and the reason I'm asking this question is that I'm not a housing expert or a planner, but I was a little bit involved with the general plan and when these RENA numbers came out. And I was hearing from the city and the county that what's required is that you make properties available for housing through zoning, not that you actually build any certain number of houses. So the question is, what is this city actually required to do through state law with these regards to these RENA numbers? If you could explain that, that would be great. And then the second question regarding 350 Marydale is, will 350 Marydale, the housing, long-term housing at 350 Marydale be subject to, or rather held hostage to, the state housing laws? Thank you very much.
Any other questions, comments?
Okay.
Jason here. I just want to say that, take it from me for being homeless for 12 years. We don't want to see anybody else become homeless. A lot of people are struggling right now with high rents and housing instability. And so, I please build the housing. I think that is the way that we need to go forward. I would like to see higher inclusionary rates. I don't believe we have to settle for 10 to 20%. We can go higher. So if you could push for that as much as possible. I do want to second what Jenny Silva from Calmer and Home said, because the folks there are doing really good work and their hearts are in the right place. And I also want to second what Ethan Stroll, his correspondence to you from Legal Aid of Marin with the tenant protections. Again, Legal Aid of Marin's heart is in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the community? All right, taking it back. Did hear a couple of questions. You want to run down, see if we get them all?
I think I'll start off. I'll take a stab at the liquefaction question. For large-scale development, or really development on geological areas of concern, the first thing that we always look at is the geotechnical report, demonstrate that it has been evaluated and actually can meet, basic engineering standards. A lot of times it was done with a preliminary geotechnical report, but then the final report actually comes out once the structure design or the project actually is defined a little bit better. This is a pretty common practice for cities, at least my tenure. Even in the city, we've actually had geotechnical reports. We also peer review them to make sure that both the outside engineer also has an opportunity to evaluate, make sure that those are up to current engineering standards. The other part of this too is also the California Building Code, and that it meets all basically adopted development standards associated with that. So that's really how we actually address or support review of areas that have concerns regarding liquefaction or any other geological hazard concerns. So.
Great. All right.
I'm no longer on deck. I'm ready. With respect to the city's obligations as it relates to RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation, as the council is probably well aware, our obligation is to plan for housing across all income levels. Because we aren't builders, we can't control the actual building or construction. But of course, that's in the community's interest to ultimately have the development built. So that's why there's discussion about what we can do as a city to facilitate that. And then in terms of 350 Marydale Road, as far as I'm aware, we're subject to state laws, but being the property owner, we have more discretion to guide that development, which is going to be shaped based on the grant agreement between the city and the county that the city council adopted last fall.
Okay, great. Thank you. There was a question around what deed restricted or how does that come into play?
I'll let Alexis take this one.
Thank you. I do want to clarify that below market rate inclusionary units in market rate developments are, those units are absolutely deed restricted. All of the inclusionary units and the units that are in addition to the city's inclusionary. Sometimes when we have state density bonus law, we have additional affordable units. Those are also deed restricted for a minimum of 55 years.
Okay, thank you. Did I miss any others? Oh, question on the inclusion rate. I don't know if there was really a question around that. Is that still something that we are under consideration in terms of changing that inclusion rate?
I think it is. There's something that the council actually asked for early on as evaluation of our 10% inclusionary. And it was, you have to recall, when we originally adopted that ordinance, it was actually 20%. We reduced it to 10 to really kind of focus on development. It's been some time. Once again, we really have not delivered units, so it's really kind of that question mark. It really will come down to a policy consideration. And I do think both this council and also potentially the housing, city council housing subcommittee also can kind of weigh in on really options to explore. There's twofold when I look at that. It's not just the number in terms of inclusionary rates, 10%, 20%, also what levels, low, very low, and then we have new income levels for extremely low. So really, there might be other options that we can kind of work through from a policy directive. So.
Great. All right, I will bring it back to council. Any other questions? Comments? Comments? Okay, great.
I'd like to start my comments by thanking the Mayor Pro Tem for asking about the links, the code that we use to refer back to the general plan. Because sometimes those of us who were not part of that don't know what we're talking about. And we spent a lot of time on that document putting forth our vision and our values, what we have as a community, as a council, and as our staff, the guidance we give to our staff. I might suggest in the future that we write those out in the staff report so that people see them, because that's our general plan. And that's part of the report too. So I would encourage more, I don't want to say the lofty goals, but more of talking about the strategic objectives of the general plan and where we are in meeting those, because that was really the purpose of it. The housing element is one element, one part of it, and that element, while it's important to align our information so that we can make a good presentation to the state housing agency, there are other things beyond that, the use of that information. And for example, as part of our general plan, we did the downtown precise plan. And some of the proposals that have been brought forward through the state, the new state development laws, have not been in alignment with our downtown precise plan. And we've had to accept those. notwithstanding our general plan. And it is the juxtaposition of those laws made in isolation in Sacramento and the impact that that has on our very well thought out plan for San Rafael. So thank you for the report. It looks like exciting times are ahead.
Yes, I want to also echo the sentiment. Thank you so much for the report, but also for all the work. I think it's been a balance act from the city. We don't build anything, but we definitely can do a lot of things around it. And the clear example to me, the biggest success is the 400 canal, where pretty much everybody was going to be displaced. So that's like a clear example. I think this is also like a balance act where you are thinking about the percentage that we are designating for low income and very low income. I want to do like 30%, but then you need to have a developer that is willing to work with that, that percentage, knowing all the different costs, construction costs, and other things that they have to deal with. So I think that's the balance. How high can we go, and what other creative methods can we use so we are still producing housing for our very low income community, but we are actually producing housing in our city. So I know that we have talked about like reviewing the percentage or some other methods. The other one that I have is when we are looking again at the design and the height with the new state laws. I'm actually think is not a bad thing because it really helps. It encourages cities to build, but the question is when the city has enough control to look at designs, but also safety. And again, with the 700 Irwin, I oppose the project. I'm still very much in opposition because I don't think it fits the space and I don't think it's a safe project. So I'm very interested to look at our design and our height limit is 8 floors. Whether do we need to lower that? So with the density bonus, when they apply that, it doesn't go like extremely high. So that's something that I know that we are going to be studying in the near future. The other things that I have on my list is the tenant protections. We know again that we have developers coming in and remodeling. They are coming to get as much money as they can, but we really want to protect our community. The access. The other one is do we have access to the inventory for preservation when there is a building that is going for sale? I know that we have great community members, for example, Canal Alliance, where they are starting to, or Eden Housing, they are starting to purchase some of these buildings for low income and remodeling them and still offering like good rents. So from the city perspective, I'm not sure if we can do more about like being in the know of what's coming so we can have a little bit of more control. And then I'm just going to finish with I saw the initial street tree inventory. I know it's still in the plan. I know it's coming, but I think it's a very important project for our city, and I look forward to continuing the work. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate the updates. It's always a good conversation. I'm going to say again, the conversation between entitled to building, I'd love to see a more strategic plan for us to help get there. We have to own it because we own the general plan, we own the housing element, and I'm saying and we also we have those RENA numbers. And so we can't just say to the developers, go for it. You're entitled now, it's all in you. And I know you know that, and you're already considering and thinking about how to do that. I think we need to look more. The inclusion conversation, I'm not there yet because we don't have any housing. Until we have some housing, then we can talk about how do we change that. It's clear, it doesn't matter whether it's 10, 20, 50, we don't have any housing. So we need to have housing before we start talking about the inclusionary. Makes me sad we don't have the NOFA. I mean, that might be an opportunity to also think about How do we move things forward? Because that NOFA allowed us to facilitate projects that are really important in our community and also in preservation. And so I'd love to see other tools that we can look at to improve us funding our affordability, for the Affordability Housing Fund. And ADUs, my comment is they're not used for housing. I have not seen, maybe a few are, but overall they're not being used for housing. It's nice that we're able to count them towards something, but I don't think it's helping us improve where we need to get people housed. And so all good for the people who can have those ADUs, and I understand it provides sometimes it might be housing at one level, but it's not helping us meet those goals, those housing goals. So I think that's about it. We know you'll be coming back again. We know more projects are coming, and we're still looking, as Member Bushy always says, we're still looking for the cranes. So thank you very much. With that, I don't have a motion.
Yes, I'm happy to make a motion. I move that we accept the General Plan and Housing Element Annual Progress Report for 2025 and direct staff to present the report to the California Department of Housing and Community Development.
A second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Yarns Galati.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz.
Aye. That motion passes. Thank you very much for all the hard work. All right, we are moving on to other agenda items. Encampment Resolution Fund Round 3 Grant and 350 Marydale Interim Shelter Project Update.
All right, good evening, Vice Mayor Kurtz and members of the City Council. As Daniel gets the PowerPoint presentation pulled up here, I'll just do a couple introductory remarks. So we're here tonight to provide just a general update on the sanctioned camping area and our Encampment Resolution Fund Round 3 grant, as well as provide some updates around the Marydale interim shelter and the development work that staff's working on that. And as I will say, the team continues to make progress on the development of the Marydale project, and we have some more exciting updates to come at the next homelessness subcommittee meeting. But most notably, what we've been working on with our community partners, and I can see that we have a couple of our neighbors from the Rafael Meadows here tonight. We've been working with them and the community to develop the good neighbor policy, the code of conduct, and really this overall operational framework for the project. And so we're here tonight to detail those efforts and to get any final feedback from you all as the City Council on these administrative documents. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Daniel.
All right. Good evening, council members. Daniel Cooperman, Community Services Division Director, and we'll jump right into it. So tonight we're going to be providing an update on both the ERF3 Encampment Resolution Fund grant implementation, as well as the development of the Marydale interim shelter. We're going to be going over proposed operational framework for the interim shelter, including the combined participant code of conduct and good neighbor policy. And then we'll wrap up by inviting you all for feedback and direction regarding the proposed framework. So a little bit on ERF3 and our sanctioned camping area down at the Mahone Path. You'll see the first bullet point has the 2024 point in time numbers, which San Rafael accounts for 326 individuals on shelter. The 2026 point in time count happened in January, and those numbers will be out in months, give or take a little bit, or probably best guess is July at the earliest, but it could be a little later after that. So a little just recap, the city and county of Marin jointly received just a hair under $6 million from the state of California for the ERF grant. That went directly to support efforts to result the Mahone Creek Path encampment. And as the picture shows, this allowed the city to stand up the sanctioned camping area and also use the remainder of the money towards development of the interim shelter at 350 Marydale. Okay, so a little bit on our sanctioned camping area. We've averaged right around 50 participants. We did increase capacity this past winter to 54, and we currently have 52 folks on site right now. Support services, which is contracted through the County of Marin and provided by St. Vinny's. There's three case managers on site, and 100% of participants are receiving case management. For benefits, we have 53 individual secured benefits, such as Medi-Cal or CalFresh, while enrolled in the program, and 35 individuals increased their income through employment and benefits during that same time. And then we also had 17 participants enter residential treatment programs. Here's a little different pie chart than what's on our website. We just redid it to make it a little easier to understand. So currently we have 7 folks from the site who were permanently housed, 9 folks who exited the SCA to either alternate shelters, back to street homelessness, or to an institution. And then currently the remainder of that number is in their housing search. So as we get ready to transition to Marydale, we obviously want to learn lessons from what we've been doing at the sanctioned camping area. On top of that, the SSA, which came before the SCA. A lot of initials, and my apologies. So really a stable and managed setting helps people focus on their housing pathway when they don't have to worry about, safety, security, different things, being able to have case management available. All those things really guide folks towards their pathway towards housing. As well as our partnership, just to highlight our partnership with the county, we continue to have case conferencing. This increases linkages and coordination and helps, again, people obtain their goals. One of the big things that's gone really well at the SCA, peer support and our town hall meetings that are held by our on-site operation providers every Friday. This is a good give and take and open lines of communication for things that are working, aren't working, and what we can do to resolve. Obviously, when you have 50 plus people on one site, there's 50 different personalities. And so this helps sort of smooth that over. And then always, especially Vinny's as the case management entity, providing culturally responsive services and being able to provide bilingual services, as there's a few folks who speak languages other than English. Now to transition over to 350 Marydale. Again, you guys have seen this a few times. It's a limited term interim shelter, 65 total units, tiny homes that will be available, and we have our list of 70 unique individuals who may participate in the program over the life of the shelter. The same support services that we have at the SCA will be provided at 350 Marydale, again with the emphasis to transition folks from interim living to permanent housing. And then the second phase of this partnership with the city county is funded by the remainder of the ERF round 3, the County of Marin grant that you guys approved in November of last year, and then as well as city and county general funds, and lastly, fundraising efforts that will kick off here in the near future. So some of the operational elements is that our site operator is responsible for the day-to-day. We get a lot of questions on what's the city doing? What's the county doing? What do our partners do? And so we are working on a public-facing document that really lays that out for everyone to understand sort of how shelter services operate. So we have a site operator, we have security like at the SCA, and then city oversight as well as county oversight for policy coordination and any major changes that have to be made, as well as, again, monitoring those contractors who work on site. And then as we continue to evolve, and you'll see this as I talk about the code of conduct and good neighbor policy, we want to continue learning from the history of these folks that we're continuing to serve, and then following best practices to have the most successful program. So now on to our operational framework, our proposed operational framework. We now have a unified good neighbor policy and participant code of conduct. We have additional safety and accountability measures. So one, everything is clear not only to the operator, to case management, but also for the folks who are living on site and the neighborhood. This framework is consistent with Low Barrier Navigation Center and Housing First framework principles, again, is following evidence-based practices that are widely accepted across the country. So some of the major takeaways from the Good Neighbor Policy and Code of Conduct. The Good Neighbor Policy, again, it is what it sounds like. It's how to be a good neighbor. So it's really focused on loitering, noise, litter, and surrounding areas, no trespassing, respectful conduct towards neighbors and local businesses, and then, to blend in with the community in terms of just being another neighbor in that community. On the other end, code of conduct is really in terms of what is allowed and what is not, right? So we have established rules such as safety procedures, prohibited items, anything to do with violence or threats. Those are things that are not welcomed. Smoking, alcohol, substance use, quiet hours, guest policies, and just compliance working with staff day to day. And so this document, which now is on its 8th iteration, is one of the longer documents you'll ever see for a Good Neighbor Policy and Code of Conduct, but it really reflects a lot of the community engagement and feedback we've gotten from multiple groups, folks with lived experience, folks on site, neighbors, concerned businesses, everyone and anyone. The feedback has truly been incorporated in this document. So as I just mentioned, community engagement, here's highlighting some of the things that we've done to get to this point. I won't go over all of it, but this was discussed in depth at last month's homelessness subcommittee meeting. And then just again, summary of some of the updates that we've incorporated more recently is clear and consistent enforcement, basically what leads to someone being discharged from the program. So there's a very clear-cut 3-step graduated accountability framework for minor infractions. Obviously, major infractions like violence or illegal activity, that's a different procedure. But again, that's all spelled out very clearly. We clarified a lot of the terminology. A lot of the homeless system of care is very jargon heavy. And so we were able to clarify that, and we're actually putting a glossary in at the end of this document just to help folks as they read through it. Smoking, alcohol, and substance use. So 350 Marydale will not require sobriety as a condition. Again, going along with the Housing First and Low Barrier Navigation Center principle. That being said, possession, distribution, or use of substance that create a safety risk is a different thing, and that's not going to be tolerated on site. And one major thing is with this Good Neighbor Policy is that this is both on site and in the immediate surrounding areas. For our safety and accountability measures, we get a lot of questions of who do I call? Or if this happens, what's next? So on our website, on the homelessness page, we now have a who do I call guide giving 24/7 resources. It's not perfect, certainly, but there's many different ways that you can reach out to city staff, or, if you need emergency, what's sort of the criteria for that. And then again, on site, we will have San Rafael FD EMTs staff there on site, as well as SRPD Special Operations Units, which are the ones who engage with the unsheltered community the most. And then on top of that, our site operator has committed to regular site and neighborhood walks just to make sure that there's nothing going on within the neighborhood. And lastly, about, I think, 2 weeks ago, we just launched a homelessness tab on SeeClick Fix. So if folks have issues related to homelessness or just want a different way to report besides emailing homelessness at cityofsanrafael.org, which is already a mouthful, there is a link. And so this is attached. This is linked in my presentation as well, but folks can see that on SeeClick Fix. Right now it's live. So just a little bit on our Low Barrier Navigation Center and Housing First framework. We get a lot of questions like, what is that? What does that actually mean? So in November, when you guys authorized or approved to do, sorry, I just lost it. For our shelter crisis declaration, part of that is that we are operating a low barrier navigation center. So as of as I mentioned earlier, that means not requiring sobriety or treatment prior to coming in, or income verification, employment. And so those are key tenets that we are following. Supportive services do remain voluntary, but part of the engagement and working with this set of folks that we already know, it means that case management is more successful than just meeting someone off the street. And to note again, all participants are engaged in housing-based case management. And so this program operates under Housing First and Harm Reduction Framework. Basically, we are meeting folks where they are at. We are working with them for them to identify their goals versus sort of dictating what we think works for them. That's sort of the old school way of case management. And so this is, again, a tried and true practice. It is really successful. Does it work for everyone on their first time? Absolutely not, but nothing does, right? So that's really how the operations is going to look on site. Moving right along, here's our initial site plan that we have. So 65 units. We have our area for a shower trailer, fire truck navigation. We have an area for pets. We have a smoking section. As you can see towards the bottom of the screen, everything is set pretty far back from the street to minimize, any effects to the neighbors. And as well as we're going to have the main entrance on Redwood Road over here. And then building A, B, and C are the existing buildings on site, with building B right now is looking like the office space for case management and for like a community area for the residents there. Then moving right along to the project timeline, in November, you guys the city council approved contracts with LCA and Swinnerton for project implementation support. We continued our community engagement. Still are working on our fundraising effort, and then released the RFP for the affordable housing development. Going into spring and summer, we're looking to secure a provider for our unit construction. We'll bring that before the city council, in addition to bringing forward any potential changes of camping ordinance, sort of in conjunction with augmenting our shelter space in the city. And as we put everywhere, we will continue our community engagement. I know we have a date set up with some of our Meadows neighbors here in a couple weeks. And then finally in fall, we plan on opening 350 Marydale for its interim use, and having a sort of tiered structured closure of the SCA and get it back to what it looked like previous to the SCA running. And then that is it for my presentation, and open for feedback, questions, and comments.
Great. Thank you for the update. Questions? Please.
Just a couple of questions, and mostly kind of looking back, because the premise of your proposal is that we've learned. Unfortunately, we've had many years of experience with these plans. So my first question is, at the existing site, have any participants been discharged from the program?
Yeah, we have that number right here. So 9.
No, I'm sorry, for behavior violations.
So this includes folks who have been discharged for
So is it 9? Were all 9 of them discharged for behavior violations?
No. So this also includes folks who left on their own or went to an institution such as hospital or jail.
So you don't know how many were discharged?
It's less than 9.
Okay.
I don't have it. It's certainly
okay.
My best guess would probably be 4 or 5, but
okay.
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, so 4 or 5, but that shows that the progressive discipline program works.
Yeah, again, the staff on site every day know these people. They see them every day. They're working closely with them. We have, the case management operations staff who are really trying to do everything to prevent any discharges. Like, it's not helpful for anyone if folks are returning back to the street. And so a ton of work goes into on prevention, right? Like, how can we work around folks and their needs?
Okay, and along the same lines, now focusing on the neighbors, What level of complaints has there been from the neighbors to the existing site?
I will say certainly in the last 6 to 9 months, pretty much nothing. When it first launched and even going into, early 2025, there were some concerns, mainly from Sprouts. But at this point, they're very happy with us there. I haven't gotten a call from anyone in, I can't remember the last time, to be honest.
And the complaints from Sprouts were about
The
parking
last
methods?
complaint was about the staff parking in their parking lot.
Okay.
That was actually the last complaint. We've had, a few noise related complaints or, folks just hanging out, especially when it's raining, going in for like to dry off.
Okay, that's right. Very good. Thank you.
So the 7 people that they are housed, that makes me so happy. Do we continue? The city doesn't usually offer services, but it's our partners and the county. Do they follow up with those people so they remain housed? I mean, what is the success rate once they are housed?
Yeah, so all those folks who are housed are still housed. So that's great. And yes, case management follows people into permanent housing. Those are some of the principles of housing first is like, it's not you get housed and all right, see you later. It's we're going to stay with you and make sure that you are stably housed for a long time until you're ready to, quote unquote, graduate from case management services.
Right. And I think because this project, the sanction encampment is in my district and I go through there every day, I think we can clearly see what works and what doesn't. What works is the sanction encampment, what doesn't is Anderson Drive. So I know that part of this project is to revisit our ordinance. Do we have like a date in mind? Is it really depending on when Mary Dell is going to start?
So I'll jump in on this one, council member. So the plan is to have changes to the camping ordinance to address the Anderson Drive encampment take effect once we're able to have those individuals move to the Marydale site so that we'll have a place for them to go. And the process to do that will require, we'll do a stop with the homelessness subcommittee later this spring, hopefully bring back recommendations to the full city council later this summer for it to be ready to take effect for an early fall implementation. So that's where, from a project management standpoint, that's how we're dual tracking the ordinance with the development of the project.
Okay, sounds good. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Just a couple of questions. Our homeless subcommittee meets monthly, and I'm sure at that time we'll be getting updates. Within the operational plan, do you have when you'll be returning to the full council with updates? I don't think it would be monthly, but I don't know whether it's quarterly or twice a year. Is there any thoughts around that yet?
So we, with the sanctioned camping area, have been operating almost on a 6-month basis. The sanctioned camping area opened in October of 24. We were back with an update in the spring of 25. Then 6 months later, we were back with the grant agreement, and now it's been about 6 months. So we've been doing that cadence, which seems to be working, at least from staff's standpoint. But with the addition of the homelessness subcommittee meeting more regularly, we'll be able to provide more incremental updates at that venue as well.
Great. I think that cadence makes sense. Can you you talked about the C-click fix. Can you talk about share what type of issues you do C-click fix versus safe? Or are those comments to C-click fix directed to safe?
They can be directed towards safe. I will say when you're doing C-click fix, it's for things that you're not looking for an immediate response, right? We have a small group of folks who are monitoring that. And so safe is more of you see something right now. It doesn't need police presence, but you need safe. And so that's a more immediate, you can call their number and get them on the phone right away. C-click fix is like, if there's homelessness related dumping or something like that, where it's like we need a city response, but it's nothing that's going to happen in the next 20 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, let's make sure that that's really clear, that people aren't thinking.
There are instructions
Great.
too, and sort of disclaimers for on See Click Fix for that, and it literally says like, if there's an emergency, please call 911. And so yeah, we have that.
Okay,
on
great.
there already.
Perfect. It's a branding thing too, the secret. Okay. All right, those are my questions. We'll go ahead and open it up to public comment for anyone who'd like to speak on this item.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, council members, staff. My name is Wayne Rayburn. I'm going to talk to you about number 6 on the Code of Conduct, which is the quiet hours. It now states the quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., which you said was code, in the code. But in the San Rafael Municipal Code 8.13.020, under definitions, number 4 states that the following. Daytime for the purpose of this chapter means the period between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m., Sunday through Thursday, and between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturdays. And also, Municipal Code Ordinance number 1977, number L, states that nighttime for purposes of this chapter means that the period between 9 p.m. and 7 a.m. Sunday through Thursday, and between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. on Friday and Saturdays. I'm asking for the Code of Conduct to be the same as the municipal codes, from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. to 7 a.m. Monday through Thursday, and 10 p.m. to 7 Friday and Saturdays. There are children in the neighborhood that must go to bed early to get to school the next morning, as well as adults who go to work very early. Also, these people need their rest. It is not fair to have a different set of rules for one group of citizens versus another. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jennifer Wallace, and this is literally in my backyard, as many of you may remember me from prior statements. My home is, my back fence literally backs up to this project. I first want to thank John and Daniel and others with the city staff with whom we've engaged on this dialogue over the last few months. We really appreciate you all incorporating our feedback and pausing and listening to us and really caring about our experience with this. And I think that demonstrates the power of partnership, and hopefully we can continue that going forward. So with gratitude to you for that. I want to echo Wayne's request for quiet hours at 9 p.m. And the picture I want to frame for you is to really think about the stack of noise that we have back there. We have Highway 101, 8 lanes. In my backyard at 5 o'clock in the morning, the decibel reading on my phone is 68 decibels. So then we add to that the traffic up and down Marydale already into the storage unit, as well as the folks who just like to come and hang out and play their car radios really loud along there. So if we want to add more, I don't know if in your plan, if the Redwood entrance is for all traffic, or is it for some traffic? And if it is some traffic, what traffic is not going through there that would be directed to going through the Marydale entrance, if any? So I'd like clarification on that, please. Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome.
Robbie Pellson. I wanted to address the ordinance aspect in the report. This weekend there was a horrible murder, right? And that's why this project is so important, because violence against women is a very serious issue, right? Half of all women are victims of violent crime every year. And that's why people need a safe place to go. And with these anti-camping ordinances, I believe that the murder was significantly contributed by the anti-camping ordinances of San Rafael. And the reason that is because um, just like Judge Chen said in his order in joining the original ordinance before grants pass, there's a need for women to have agency to keep themselves safe. And what's happened is that since grants passed, the city has been chipping away at places where people can go. They turned Anderson Drive into the only place people can be, and they trapped women there. And it's a pressure cooker without a release valve. And I think that in response to this, the city should reopen the library and the city hall because it's right next to the police station. Police stations are shown to reduce instances of violent crime around them because this project is important for protecting unhoused women who the city of San Rafael knows. I mean, there's organized crime that's exploiting, trafficking women, right? They need a safe place to be. And if we have an anti-camping ordinance where you're isolating women, you're forcing them into unsafe locations, then you're playing in the hands of organized crime that make them dependent and isolated so they can exploit them. And so I think that while this program is important in keeping some people safe, we know it's going to be full, and we got to think of all the women that are out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Gregory Andrew. I live in San Rafael Meadows. I appreciate the engagement we have been able to have with staff on the Code of Conduct and Good Neighbor Policy. I do appreciate that the Code of Conduct has moved to a three-strike enforcement process, and I would ask, though, that you delete one word on page 8 of 9 for major infractions. Please delete the word serious, where it says serious criminal activity, since I think it is reasonable to think that any criminal activity is serious. I also appreciate that the city appears to be moving away from condoning illegal drug use at the site. I submitted a comment letter today referring to 2 news articles, one that San Francisco and other cities are moving away from the harm reduction approach, and another about a homeless shelter in San Francisco that is near capacity and on a waiting list. And I'm asking that you and staff investigate and evaluate these further and believe they support you looking to operate 350 Merridale without illegal drug use. The murder at Anderson this weekend is shocking and frightening to my community. I remind you that you have decided to place this interim shelter in a residential neighborhood with young families, many young children, daycare centers, elder-assisted living facilities, and businesses, and is your responsibility to ensure the safety and well-being of the community. I'd like to close with 3 questions. The first being, will the participants have any property rights with the shelters they live in? Second question is, what are the phases that are anticipated for opening of the shelter, and how will the phases be implemented? And the third is there illegal drug use at the Mahone sanctioned camping area, and how will illegal drug use be any different at 350 Merridale? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello. I just want to say that I believe in low barrier shelters, interim housing. They're proven to work. I do believe in harm reduction. You know, I am on various homeless committees, and I do understand the data, and it's proven to work, both of those. Also, what I mostly want to say is, you know, the faster this project gets going, the better. We know housing strategies in Marin work. Since 2018, over 900 people have been permanently supported, got housed in permanent supportive housing. Just in this last year, 15 people from Home Creek Camp have been permanently housed. 40 are on an identified pathway to housing. These numbers, you know, it shows that it works. Also, Marin County has the highest retention rate. Once people get housed, they stay housed. It's at 94%. It's well above the California average and state or country average. So we want to keep these proven practices going, and I think Centerville is starting to do that. And so I support this project. I support the code of conduct where it is right now. I think you've had enough input. I don't think you need any more. If it was for me, I want it to be less restrictive, but I understand you got to take the neighborhood neighbors into account. But please get this project going. Thank you.
And I just want to support what Jason had to say about the importance of moving this project forward. There is a great deal of evidence that the less time people spend on the street, the better the outcomes. Every day that we delay this is another day that we are not helping the people that so badly need help. I'd also agree with Jason that I feel like this is a very comprehensive code of conduct. The all of San Rafael's ordinances apply to everybody who is in the that's in the shelter. We don't need to redo what we've already done. And it really feels a little bit unfair that you have to register a guest ahead of time. Just as a person thinking of other people, that seems like of all the people that need support, there are people there. They should be able to have their friends and family come. I'm not going to argue that you change it. I think the most important thing is we move it forward and we get people off the street. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hello, Council, Interim City Manager, Vice Mayor. I'm Craig Murray, 260 Marydale. I'm speaking on behalf of District 3, the 94903 areas of code. And just want to echo the comments about staff working on it. They've been very diligent, but also want to echo the comments about completing projects. So the site there, it was incorporated by the city 50 years ago. We have sidewalks that aren't complete. Families, seniors are walking the street. We have unpaved areas that are in your bike ped plan to be paved. These things are priorities. They need to happen. Hopefully it's not left abandoned and this project crops up. What was happening was we were expecting 45 townhomes, 9 of those to be for working people like staff here that need housing in Marin County. And we were expecting that. What happened to us is now a relocation site for Santa Fe's homeless, and some serious, serious concerns, besides just our property values, besides how it's going to affect our community, but how in the future, often with public projects, what's temporary, interim becomes permanent. I think that's a real concern. Lastly, what I did hear is there's unfortunate death, a murder in the homeless encampment. So I think you need to really take a very serious look at how this will be operated within a residential area. If it is your home, your residential area, would you want this? Would you want people on drugs, visitors with drugs, either with drugs or on drugs? And would you want weapons in that area? Would that make you feel safe? Would you feel safe for your children, neighbors, friends? What could possibly happen? We have visitors coming on the smart station that's adjacent. How's it going to reflect on Santa Fe, your image? So these are serious things. I want to thank everybody for working on it and hopefully address those. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I too want to second all of what Jason said. And I thought that Robbie brought up a really important point. This tragedy happened, and I just wanted to be clear, it was not in the sanctioned encampment. It was in the encampment on Anderson, which is even more of a reason as to why sanctioned encampments and legal safe spaces for people to sleep is so important, especially for women. I remember I came up and spoke when there was the criminal or the legalities of sleeping in public parks was taken away. And one of the things that I stressed is that you have situations where if you just condense people that are in housed to small areas and it's the only legal place that they can sleep, it doesn't allow for situations where women can go and find safe alternatives if they're not feeling safe for where they are. And so moving forward, after the Mahone Creek campment gets moved, I really urge you to consider that and to consider having more safe spaces for women, especially that are unhoused, where they can go and they can sleep, whether it's here, whether it's by the library, wherever it is. I think Robbie brought up a good point about how acts of violence are less near police stations. I mean, I think that only makes sense. And so I just really hope that that's something you consider moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on this item before we take it back? Okay. All right, bring it back. Any other additional questions or comments?
I think there was some.
I have a number of questions that we'll be addressing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So do you want to go down your list?
Yeah,
Question?
I can start with ours. Daniel and I will tag team these. So I'm going to respond to Jennifer Wallace's comments around the design of the site and where the primary entrance is going to be. And so as we're going through the design work with our architects, it will be staff's recommendation that the primary entrance be along Redwood Highway. And that would also be the entrance in which servicing vehicles to come and service the site would be entering. But given the way that the site is and where the fire lane is currently planned to be, that there would be vehicles that would be exiting out onto Marydale from the site and then leaving to, go wherever they need to go. There will be a staff-only entrance on Marydale, and that will also be where folks from our Special Operations Unit and the fire department's BLS unit, as well as our site operator staff, will be parking. So they'll be in the few spaces in front of Marydale and then along Marydale as well. And so that's it for that question. There was a question from Gregory Andrew around, will participants have property rights? And the answer to that is no, they will not. And I'll hand it off to Daniel to handle the other 3 questions. Yep.
And for Greg's question about the phases of opening the shelter, it's pretty much impossible to move 50 plus people in one day or 2 days. So as we get closer and have the opening date identified between both opening Marydale and closing the SCA, there will just be tranches of folks moving in. We don't expect that to last, certainly not a month, but most likely a few weeks. And so that's what that will look like in terms of the phases. Your other question around illegal drug use of the SCA, there's no illegal drug use in common or public areas right now. And so that's the expectation going into Marydale as well. Was there one other question on this?
And then Wayne, your question, and Jennifer, you had asked this as well, is aligning the quiet hours more precisely with what's in the municipal code. And so differentiating between weekdays and weekends, we'll be able to incorporate that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think there was one, maybe, sorry.
Please.
So I think somebody was mentioning around having a project that is temporary, that at the end stays forever. Can you address that as well?
Yeah, so with our grant with the county, we will be able to run the site through June of 2027. If we want to go and operate the site for an additional year through June of 2028, we have to show to the county that we have enough financing, funding to operate the shelter at the standard that it was when it initially started. And now we'll go on. We have that option as well to go into 2029. Under no circumstances will this project extend beyond 2029. That is expressly written in our grant agreement. And also tangentially, we have an obligation to entitle the property for at least 80 units of affordable housing by June of 2028, June 30th of 2028. And so, as Greg in the previous presentation alluded to, that we have issued an RFP to identify and select an affordable housing developer. We also have a vested interest in making sure that this project winds down and the affordable housing project has a pathway to then start to be built once it's entitled in 2028. So it's a lot to say, but given the parameters within our grant agreement with the county, this will not extend beyond 2029 at the latest.
All right. Councilmember Bushy, any additional questions?
Not questions, but comments when you're ready.
Okay. I just had one additional question on the outreach to the businesses in the area. Are you having separate conversation with the businesses, or are they invited to join the community meetings?
Both, yes. They're certainly more than welcome to come to any community meeting, but we have had a number of sort of one-on-one meetings with different businesses.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. Comments?
Thank you for bringing forward these very comprehensive rules. We have a proven track record of running these programs, and it is reflected in the level of detail and thought that went into both of these plans. The participant rules and the good neighbor policy. As the representative for this area, I'd like to thank you for accepting and adjusting your quiet hours to correspond with the cities. That I think that will help a great deal, and I just appreciate your openness to making those changes. All in all, this is a very reasonable proposal brought forward with a lot of involvement with the community, and I think we should. Are we approving it tonight, or are you we're just giving comments? Yep. Those would be my comments, and we will look forward to an orderly construction and opening later this year.
Great, thank you. Comments?
Yes, thank you so much for the report, but also for all the work. You can tell that you are putting so many hours on this. I really appreciate also the community members that they are here tonight, but also all the ones that you are connecting with. I think in our cities, this is again not something particularly for San Rafael. It's affecting so many cities, and the cities. We are not the Department of Health and Human Services. We are a city. So I think this is really trying to work with this issue and not just like look away and see what happens, really being proactive. So I think this is a great, to me, this is kind of like the second visionary project. The first one is the encampment that we have right now that is working in my district. And again, we see what is not working with Anderson Drive. So I'm really excited about being able to have more units in a place where they can hopefully transition to housing, because that will be our success, right? When we close these, either they go into the new development for the 80 units in Merrydale, or maybe they will be housed before. Hopefully that would be even amazing. So, but I really appreciate the entire community, because we cannot do this alone with our city, and again the staff, and really coming to an agreement and see what is reasonable, for a neighborhood. So so thank you so much, and I just keep encouraging you to connect with the community, with the new neighbors that they are going to be there, and hopefully they will do well so they can transition. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of work. It's a long path. I would say you know, if you have that magic wand, if there, as we're hearing, the sooner we can open it, the better. And if there is anything that comes to mind that we can do to help facilitate going faster, I mean, there are a ton of moving pieces, and I don't know what that would be. And I look to you to be able to articulate that. But please, please bring it back so we can, you know, make that decision. I think it's very important. I mean, there was months ago, I asked, what would it take to do this in 25 days? And that was under a different arrangement, you know, and so I know it's a lot. But I do, there's only a couple levers that we can move. And I know it's funding is one of the big ones. But what would that look like if we could do something like that? So I really appreciate it. I do appreciate the community's input. I appreciate those from McLeave who are here. Marin County lived experience, those who have experienced homelessness have also contributed to the work here. And it's really invaluable to have that because they have the experience on the ground and know what it's like. And so very much appreciate that and the continued work to move this forward. And we're not solving homelessness tonight, but this is very important for our community and for the homeless community as well. So I appreciate it. So with that, I ask for a motion.
I'll make a motion to receive the project update and provide direction regarding the operational framework for the 350 Marydale Road interim shelter, including the revised participant code of conduct and good neighbor policy.
Second?
First and second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Yorn Scalati.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz.
Aye, thank you. That motion moves forward. And we are on to electric vehicle charging equipment purchase. Yay.
So just to quickly introduce this item, Jonathan Shellen, Deputy Director of Public Works, would be presenting it. He would have been joined by Corey, who was out sick today, but they've collaborated on the staff report and the presentation, and I'll turn it over to... Okay. Well, let's do, can you... Way.
Yeah. Good evening, Council. I'm Jonathan Shellen, Deputy Director for Public Works. Looks like the PowerPoint isn't loading up here, but I can present without it if needed. I can get started if. So tonight, presenting the electric vehicle charging equipment fleet electrification program. It's a mouthful, and we'll start with the background here and go into what it is, the project scope. Specifically, the ask in tonight, one of the asks is authorization for equipment purchase, and another ask is a increase in funding allocation and why those are, and then get to any questions as needed. Oh, there we go. So we'll dive into the background, how we got here. All three of these points, the Climate Change Action Plan, the City Strategic Plan, and the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulations, all those point to we want to move in the direction of EV charging and usage, as well as we have to. State mandate and required, long story short, 2027, next year, all of our fleet replacement needs to be zero emissions, so electric vehicle. To be able to do that, we have to be able to charge them, and that's where this project comes in. The background here, starting back in 2024, we were awarded EECBG, so that is Energy Efficiency Community Block Grant funds, as well as had a facility assessment from Marin Clean Energy. Long story short, we have one EV charger at Public Works facility. Not able to do a whole fleet with that. Fast forwarding to last year, we were successful in our application to PG&E EV fleet program. That is not only obligating them to do their side of the meter because the supply there does not meet the needs for fast charging, but it also gets us grant dollars for the hardware that we need, the infrastructure we need to do, as well as some offsetting reimbursements when we do purchase electric vehicles. And then the MTC fleet transition planning, is another facility for another support for right here. There we go. Bullet 4, transition planning, helping us transition and build out our plan to move to EVs. And finally, fleet policy is supporting all this movement. So that is the how we're getting there. Now, what we're actually doing in this specific item, it'll result in 8 level 3 charging ports. These are able to be all the way up to fast charging, but they are serviced in a way that it's flexible charging. So we can program the system to prioritize certain vehicles, go from a 20% charge to an 80% charge on a standard, heavy duty pickup truck in about 30 to 35 minutes at the fast charging, but also trickle overnight. They give us a lot of flexibility, be able to maximize lower rate cost periods. So, hey, plug it in at 2 o'clock when the early shift is done, but it doesn't start charging until 12:01 midnight, so that it's utilizing lower rates. This also helps us meet our requirements to get the PG&E upgraded service provision. So they're doing a lot of work on their side. That's expensive. And the bigger crux of it is it takes a long time usually, but through this program and through us keeping our end of the deal with the application, they're staying on a much faster timeline. The end result of that will be not only do we get better service, we get lower cost service. So those chargers will have their own separate electric meter, which will be 50 to 70% cheaper than the electricity servicing the building. And finally, we have successfully negotiated with PG&E to get expanded service, not just service for this initial phase, but so if we do go to a second phase and double our chargers at the fleet courtyard, that their work will already be enough supply to facilitate that. So that was a successful negotiation for this. Specifically tonight, we're utilizing Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing to facilitate the purchase of a Kempower EV charging equipment. That's the brand name behind the chargers. It's one central tower plus the 8 DC fast charging ports. And then also in support of this, but not specific on the authorization, is the switchgear. We're able to purchase that because it's not as expensive. We have the authorizations there already, but I wanted to include that because these things are happening in tandem. You can't get one without the other being able to support them. And that switchgear is also designed to facilitate that future phase of growth and charging needs. Project budget. So back in June, I believe, 2025, we came and had an initial cost estimate of $538,000. And in that, we estimated $246,000 would be what the city would end up paying after all the grant reimbursements. Staying true to that kind of end goal or end cost for the city, we've been able to find increased grant opportunities by going, all 8 chargers are now fast charging, whereas in the original estimate, it was 2 plus 6 level 2 chargers. We get a lot more money back by having higher capacity and building this out for a future proof. It did significantly increase the project cost, but we are also staying within range of that $246,000. The updated net cost of the city with these grant reimbursements would be between $231,000 and $327,000. I have a range there because some of our grant providers, i.e. federal government, is not always the most reliable on some of the stipulations. So one of these provisions that adds to the range is we've taken steps to buy American and have that certification. But we know sometimes the rug gets pulled out. So we're planning for worst case scenario with that 327. Best case scenario, we only ended up on the hook for 231,000. So the other kind of drivers for these project increase: site location. DPW in the courtyard is located on a infill, and there's a cap. Through further site analysis and working with our designers and the county, we're not able to trench. We're not able to dig down without going through a lot more permitting hurdles, which is typically okay. We plan out in advance. A lot of this money, as I'll get to on the next page, is stipulated with a hard deadline of June 30th this year. We have to be able to charge a vehicle with this project before the end of June, before the end of this fiscal year. We can't go through all the permitting and digging through the cap and cal recycle and everything else to be able to do the trenching. So we changed our design, which increased the cost, but we found offsetting grant opportunities to save on that. So we're able to make the timeline work while also working within, kind of our limitations, our target goal of keeping the cost down for the city. And then finally, future proofing. We went with level 3 on all of them, much flexible chargers, much more adaptable. We can, react to emergency service vehicles that need to charge quickly on a wider scale versus having only 2 level 3 chargers. So funding allocation, here's where we are talking about the grant money. PG&E is $200,000 for the infrastructure. You'll see at the bottom there's a little asterisk plus EV incentives of $40,000, so it's really $240,000 from PG&E. That is tied to us staying on this timeline and meeting our obligations. We have 5 years to purchase these EVs that we've included in our application. This is year 1. So over the next 5 years, our fleet purchasing policy is in alignment with this so that we keep on making those incentives and utilizing and making those, meeting those end goals and targets for PG&E. Energy Block Grant is $123,000. MC Transportation Authority, another 52, and then the Investment Tax Credit, ITC, that's the federal one, that's another federal one, and that bottom line there, the 285 to 381,000, that is the bucket of money that we lose out if we don't have it done by June 30th of 2026. So that is how we get to that final range of grant funding, 660,000 to 756,000 total that we're able to recoup for the city. And what we are asking for tonight is 2 things. 1, authorization to procure the equipment. That's the ChemPower fast charger equipment, roughly $351,000. And then allocating the additional funds of $450,000 that are supported by the offsetting revenues of those increased grant amounts to the project, which would make it a total project cost of $988,000. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Wow, that was a lot. All right. Micah, yes.
Thank you so much. That looks like a lot of work looking into all those grants and negotiations. So, did I just forget my question? Okay. Sorry, I just lost my question. Well, one is around sea level rise. I know that you cannot dig down without a lot of permits. Is the new design including sea level rise? And my second question, before I forget, is that if there is, like loss of power, is it possible to, I'm just thinking about having like because the way you describe these EV chargers, they almost sound like batteries where they just connect when there is the lowest time of the day to charge. But what about if there is like a, storm or something and we lose power? Is there a way to have like a battery, some sort of like batteries or something to be reliable?
Yeah, so speaking to sea level rise, yes, that was taken into consideration. And the design, one reason that it's increased in cost is we are building up instead of trenching down now. Right. And we are building up to a level that takes into account the latest sea level rise forecasts. So we're actually adding up a couple of feet and trench and putting the conduit on top of that, as well as increasing the height for the main switchgear is the most valuable and vulnerable piece of equipment. So that's taken into account. In terms of loss of power, there is also a generator for DPW that we can adapt the design at a later date to be able to facilitate backup charging specific for the EV chargers, on top of which adding more vehicles that have their own batteries. I mean, these vehicles have 100 plus kilowatts in their battery. That only doubles our resiliency in terms of a power outage to be able to use these cars now as backup energy storage, to drive them to a location and hook up generators, pumps, so forth, and power them with the cars. So the cars themselves are our backup batteries in some instances. Mm-hmm. So it really helps in our resiliency.
Fantastic. Thank you.
That's my question.
I have one very specific question. Will these charging sites be open to the public?
No. So part of the PG&E fleet transition program is stipulates these are for our fleet vehicles only. City staff will not be able to charge their personal vehicles on these. These will be behind the closed gate at the courtyard. But we do have a phase 2, and in our design work with our consultants, we have built out a second phase that includes conduit and a power charging level 2 chargers front facing, so public facing, to facilitate staff charging as well as any public resident in that area. So that is, we have the design work for it. It's not in terms of within our budget for this fiscal year to be able to facilitate that, as well as that would require trenching. And so we're pushing that to a later date. We're basically making it shelf ready and to be able to do the permitting once we have the budgeting and dollars behind it.
And if you could add to that shelf readiness, to include a comprehensive and consistent policy for public use of charging sites. I know there's been some variability in the prices charged and the excess. So if we could have some consistency there, that would be great.
In that initial design for public facing, we did do a lot of research, and the state has taken steps to kind of align requirements of what's required for public facing in terms of, can you charge by time? No, it needs to be on electricity usage, as well as a fair and consistent and transparent policy on charging. So that's taken into account. We have a lot of that built into how we will approach that if and when we get to the public facing portion.
That sounds great. Thank you.
That's interesting. I'm sorry if I missed this. Is it leased or purchased?
Purchased.
Was there a decision around purchasing versus leasing?
I don't believe the PG&E fleet application allows for leasing the equipment. So I believe a lot of the grant dollars behind this is for us to purchase.
So with that, are we building in a maintenance program or a maintenance plan or an upgrade plan was part of that?
So included in the staff report, not spoken here, is a 5-year service plan. It's about $10,000 on a $350,000 purchase on the equipment. On top of that, yes, we do know we will need to increase the operations budget to maintain this equipment in the long term. Initial term, it'll be very low usage because we don't have many cars.
Right.
So initial for the first couple of years, it's going to be a low power drain, low usage, so low to nominal maintenance needs. Further out, yes, it will require increased maintenance as the load increases.
And PG&E provides the maintenance or?
To the meter. So same thing as normal. They provide to the meter maintenance requirements, and then anything that's on our infrastructure, we're responsible for maintaining.
And do we have any solar, or have we considered solar to?
There is solar at DPW, but because this is its own meter with PG&E, it's very clearly separated from that, in my understanding, with how it would work with the power generation from PG&E and from the grid.
Great. Definitely a conversation that they didn't have 20 years ago. All right. Perfect. I'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. If there's anyone who'd like to comment on this item, welcome to.
Good evening, Alvatiri, Gersel Park. You covered my ongoing expense question. I wasn't clear. How many vehicles currently are you? Well, sorry, I'm not talking to you. How many vehicles are being covered today? Because it sounded like you were buying three units, so I didn't know if you were buying more than you needed right away just to satisfy the contracted arrangements to be done by June, the June date. Oh, do me a favor. Don't say only 200,000. That to me is wrong. It's a personal thing. That's a lot of money in my world. And if I didn't ask us already, where are they located?
Great. Thank you. Any other questions from the community? All right. Let's go in. How many vehicles?
Yeah. So current vehicle fleet at DPW, there's really only 2 vehicles that fall under the classification for this infrastructure. It's light to heavy duty trucks is what the PG&E fleet application covers. So DPW only has, I believe it's one F-150 Lightning, and now fleet-wide, we have several EVs, a few of the Ford Mach-E's, as well as some other smaller EVs. This infrastructure is technically for the replacement of our light to heavy duty trucks. We only have one, I believe, right now. We had another F-150 Lightning that we canceled because Ford took a very long time in procuring, and I believe we have another one on the way. Now, for the application process that's called out as what we're obligated to purchase to maintain all the funding that we're getting, it's 8 vehicles over this timeline that classify for this. Now, we can charge any vehicle on this charging network. That's the beauty of it. We're obligated for these light to heavy duty trucks, but we can charge any vehicle across the city on this meter. So right now, it's only 2 vehicles. Future, we're buying 8 that are specific to this program, but we have other purchases planned throughout this time and even after this program that we anticipate purchasing.
Can I just clarify on that? At least my understanding is that this whole project, the infrastructure, as you said, is not being designed for our current EV fleet. It's being designed, and the whole program is to help the city transition its overall light heavy duty truck fleet to electric vehicles through the infrastructure required in the grant to do it. So there'll be a little bit of lead time for the kind of return on the investment, so to speak, but it's built for the where we're going in the future with our fleet to maximize electrification.
Great, thank you.
And including vehicles that we know we have to replace them with EVs, but the market doesn't have the EVs there yet available. So it's a leap of faith on some of these replacement vehicles.
Okay. And this, I'm assuming it's at the courtyard.
Yeah, the location is 111 Morphew Street, the Public Works Department building, and the courtyard with the gated facility.
Okay, great. I just had one other question around this. Do we have a master plan for EV? We talked a little bit about the strategy in terms of public charging, but we have DPW that's going to have an EV fleet at some point. I imagine we have the police vehicles, we have fire vehicles, we have, what is our big picture?
Yeah. I'm only going to share the part I'm aware of, which is the council may recall or was discussed when we brought this to you at the beginning of the fiscal year. The original scope, desired scope for the project was to include sites beyond Department of Public Works, including City Hall that would serve for other fleet vehicles as well as potentially public safety. But because of the cost, at the time, the requirement for city local funds, the decision was made to proceed, at least initially, with the public works site. And I also want to commend staff for their work in generating the additional grant revenue and scoping to make that be more cost effective. And we would envision in due course to then be able to bring phase 2, which is other sites, particularly here in the downtown.
Great, thank you. And thank you for the report. And thank you, Director Vitov. We're sorry you don't. Hope you feel better soon. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right, please. Comments? Comments.
Comment. I want to build on the commendation both for the staff and for PG&E. At CMSA, it took us forever to get our interconnection built out with PG&E, and so this timeline is just amazing. And that there's a grant there to do it, to build in the infrastructure, and then to put in the meters so that can be controlled by time of use, so we can minimize the actual bills and minimize the impact on the grid from this charging.
So I realize I might need a clarification also. PG&E, we have actually designed this to either be able to charge a vehicle with them getting the work done, or even if they don't get their work done, we actually have improved our design to bypass their increase so that we're actually turning on the equipment and charging it to meet the ITC deadline, even if PG&E falls off their schedule. So I don't want to set the precedent or the expectation that we're getting the PG&E meter right away. We recognize it's PG&E. They can take their time sometimes. And so we will eventually have that meter. It might not be by June 30th, but the project will still be successful for grant funding. So I just wanted to add that clarification.
Even more commendable behavior to have a backup plan when they're dealing with them. So excellent work on the timeline. Looks great. Great project. Thank you.
Yes, it's so refreshing having a project that is actually prepared for like sea level rise. So it's almost like unheard of, which is so important. So this is no brainer. It's part of our climate action goals. Thank you, Corey, for being online as well. And I'm really excited about just getting it done. And probably by the time PG&E finishes is when we will be able to acquire the EV fleet, So, but yeah, I really want to commend meeting the deadlines, especially that federal one that expires on June 30th, and being able to be resourceful. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing maybe having like one of those betting cars days that we can go and participate. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see and fantastic to track down the grants. And we know this is expensive. And it's still going to be expensive. We think that it's just free and it's not. And it's so really appreciate it. And because it's hard to find that money and it's very competitive. So thank you for doing that. And this is a great update. And I'm looking forward to really seeing out the full implementation. So, okay, with that, is there a motion, please?
Sure. I'll make a motion to adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to procure electric vehicle charging equipment through a Sourcewell cooperative purchasing agreement for the public works facility at 111 Morphew Street in an amount not to exceed $351,245 and authorize supplemental budget appropriations of $450,000 within the Capital Improvement Funds, Fund 401, supported by additional grant funding secured for the project for a total cost not to exceed $988,000.
Second?
All right, first and second, roll call, please.
Councilmember Bushy.
Aye.
Councilmember Jorn Scalati.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Kurtz.
Aye. That motion carries. Thank you. We are moving back to open time for public expression. For any items not on tonight's agenda, if there's any public comment.
So I would like to float an idea, given this murder, that the city convene a task force about looking at the safety of unhoused women. I think that it's always been a serious concern. That was a big reason for the original injunction in the Boyd case. And I think that, it's got to be a holistic approach because we know that not everybody can make it into this camp. We know there's criminal elements in San Rafael that's exploiting women. And there needs to be a way to think about that. And I think about it in terms of San Rafael police are, supposed to fight human trafficking, but anti-camping ordinances are supporting human trafficking. I mean, because what you do is you put women in an impossible choice between, criminal prosecution and being in a safe place. And what that does is that it gives abusers more control over their lives. And so it creates, it makes it so interpersonal conflicts, just worse. And there's got to be a way to look at that. And even under grants pass, the safety of women is still important. And it's something that should be looked at. And I think in the past, San Rafael's had task force on human trafficking. There's been task force done on these kind of issues. There should be a task force on this issue because that murder is a huge trauma. It's a huge loss, and we need to avoid that happening in the future. Recognize for that one murder, there's a lot of other violence that's unreported that you don't see. That's something I want to offer.
Thank you.
Good evening again. I just want to also speak on the limited number of safe places for unhoused individuals in general, but specifically for women. And I want to share my story. When I was unhoused, there was no safe sleeping areas at all. And me and the person that I was with at the time, we would have to find areas that were hidden. And in those hidden areas is where a lot of physical abuse would happen. And so I just want to stress the point that the criminalization of homelessness and really limiting the safe spaces where people can sleep, yes, out in the open. I know it's unsightly, but at the same time, it's also a lot safer, especially for women. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
So I hope this is okay. I would like to put in some thoughts about 700 Irwin. Regardless of where you're at regarding 700 Irwin, there's still some plans and some studies, supposedly, I guess, another geotech, a main geotech report for that site, because I read the phase 1 report and it's kind of general for the area. It does apply to the site, but it doesn't go into specific details. It bases its summaries and its conclusions on the area, and that area has high liquefaction. There is the creek, and it's a I'm sure you know all about this, but it's a tidal creek, and the water goes up and it goes down, and there is the site. And so this site gets inundated, and then when we have our rains and we're supposedly looking at climate change, we're having bigger and bigger storms coming in, and the hills and the water, the comes from the hills and it comes into the creeks and mingles with the tidal flows, and we get isn't that a pump station right across the creek? I believe it is. Maybe anyway. And then we have on liquefaction, we've got the bridges, the Highway 101 bridges, and the gas station with the fuel tank in the soil.
Thank you. Do you want to?
I'm sorry I didn't get to everything, but I please.
Thank you. Any other comments, please?
Hi there, I'm Justin. I live on Mountain View Avenue. It's nice to meet you. I sent you all an email today. I hope it's not read with a poor tone or angry tone, but the murder was very disturbing to me. I've been a fireman and EMT for 25 years, and I won't mention the neighborhoods that I work, but very statistically, some of the worst places to be in the United States. And I see things that kind of happen and kind of trigger what I see in other capacities in my life in my home. And I really want to get involved to make sure that we do everything we can to avoid those things for our children. I'm in opposition of the substance position, specifically alcohol and drugs for the Marydale site. Aside from challenging the good order and behavior within the site, occupants need to build self-control and discipline to help them get on their way and get their lives back on track. Addiction treatment and good decision making is part of that, and I think we need to have some degree of a policy that recognizes that where they can make an informed decision for the benefit of themselves. And opening, I don't know the specifics of what's authorized, but opening it is not okay for me. Also, I'm not in support of opening the camping ban outside of the new site. Marydale was more than a gracious effort by the citizens and the city to bring up those in need. However, myself and my 300 families on Mountain View believe that we cannot entertain both the site and an open authorization to camp anywhere within the city. And with that, once the site opens, I would advocate for a stronger policy for those who are not in that site to be dealt with swiftly, to be shown resources outside of the city of San Rafael, and to hope that we can get them there.
Thank you for
Thank you.
comments. Any other public comments? No? All righty, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.